Imagine this. You are 7 years old, sitting in the corner of a house too quiet for its own good. The refrigerator hums, the clock ticks, but everything else feels like silence stretching too far, like the walls themselves are listening. The air feels heavier at night. The shadows spill long across the floor, shapes that shift just enough to make you wonder if you imagined it. So, you create someone. Children are good at that. They summon playmates out of boredom, invent voices in their heads, and call it imagination. But what you summon doesn't feel invented. From the first moment, it feels like remembering, like this friend was waiting in the silence, wearing the outline of your loneliness like a mask. This friend knows how to listen. They know the things you can't tell anyone else. They laugh when you laugh, and their smile, though you've never truly seen it, feels sharper than it should. They're not like the cartoon characters your classmates imagine. They're detailed, precise. You know the sound of their voice, the tilt of their head, the way their footsteps seem to fall just behind yours. Too real to be make-believe. And that's where the unease begins. At first, it's comfort. They talk to you when no one else does. When you're punished, when you're forgotten, when your parents close the door too quickly and the night presses in, your friend is there. But they don't just echo your thoughts like a doll. They tell you things. Small things at first. Where you left the missing toy, what your teacher will say tomorrow, why the neighbor's dog is barking in the dark. And they're always right. You don't think about it much. Children don't question miracles. They adapt. You accept your friend the way you accept your reflection in the mirror. Until one day, you realize something terrifying. They know things you shouldn't. Like the fight your parents had in whispers after midnight, or the dream you never told anyone about, or the words you almost said but swallowed only to hear them spoken aloud by a voice that wasn't yours. And sometimes, just sometimes, you feel their hand brush yours. That's when you notice the silence in the house is different now. Not emptiness, not loneliness, but presence. A presence that fills the corners, watching through the gaps in the curtains, standing in the hallway when the lights are off. One night you wake up and find yourself whispering their name into the dark, and the dark whispers it back. You try to convince yourself it's imaginary. All children do this. You read stories where lonely kids make friends out of thin air. Adults say it's harmless. But why then do you feel afraid to sleep? Why do you keep the blankets up to your chin as if hiding your face would keep the unseen away? Deep down, you already know. You didn't invent them. You met them. And the most chilling thought is this: what if they didn't vanish when you grew older? What if they were only waiting? Years later, long after the toys are gone and the childish games are buried, you'll still catch yourself pausing at night, sensing someone behind you. A faint breath on your neck. A whisper, almost too low to hear. A memory you never grew out of, because memories don't watch you while you sleep. You were a child when you first met your friend, but children don't always stay children. And friends, real or not, don't always go away. The friend who wasn't human never really leaves. And the silence in your house will never be just silence again.
Why do children invent friends out of thin air? Psychologists have called it a coping mechanism, a bridge between imagination and reality, a way to soothe loneliness, to soften trauma, to give shape to feelings that words cannot yet hold. A child creates a companion not because they are broken, but because the world around them is. The imaginary friend becomes the mask for everything missing: affection, safety, someone to listen when no one else will. But what if the friend doesn't simply come from the child's mind? What if the friend is invited? Carl Jung once wrote that the shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. He believed that every person carries within them a hidden counterpart, the unacknowledged, repressed, often darker aspects of themselves. For an adult, the shadow appears in dreams, in sudden flashes of rage, in behaviors we cannot explain. But for a child, untutored, unguarded, open, the shadow may slip into life as something far more tangible. It might walk beside them. It might speak back. And once it has a voice, it rarely surrenders it. Yet not all explanations lie within psychology. Across cultures, across centuries, there are stories of beings that slip through when the walls of the mind are weakest. In Filipino folklore, there are the duende, spirits that live in corners and mounds, often attaching themselves to children who stumble too close. In Japanese tales, there is the zashiki warashi, a childlike presence that haunts lonely homes, bringing fortune if respected, misfortune if ignored. In the West, whispers of fairies, demons, or the man in the corner fill old storybooks, warning children to be careful who they speak to in the dark. Different names, different cultures, the same pattern. Why do these stories echo one another from villages separated by oceans and centuries? Why do children everywhere describe their companions with such detail? The unsettling truth may be this: children do not imagine their friends. They perceive them. They see what adults have been trained to unsee. Philosophers like Schopenhauer argued that the world is not what it appears, that our senses filter and distort a deeper reality, one too terrifying or incomprehensible to grasp directly. Children, untouched by years of conditioning, may glimpse pieces of this raw world. Their friends might be fragments of something beyond, something the adult mind refuses to acknowledge. And then there's the question of trauma. Gabor Mate, in studying addiction and childhood wounds, observed that suffering doesn't simply vanish, it reshapes itself, finding outlets, masks, and metaphors. What if the friend is trauma-given form? A part of the child's pain stepping outside of them, clothed in a body and voice so that it can finally be recognized. A walking reminder of wounds too raw to articulate. But trauma alone cannot explain the details. Trauma cannot tell a child things they have no way of knowing. Trauma does not whisper secrets in the dark or press invisible fingers into their palm. So where does that leave us? Perhaps it leaves us at the edge of an abyss between two explanations, one psychological, one supernatural. Both unsettling, neither complete. If it is psychology, then every friend is a mirror of what we repress, proof that the human mind is stranger than we can bear to admit. If it is folklore, then children are not alone at all. They are surrounded by entities eager to step into the cracks of our loneliness. And maybe, just maybe, it is both. Nietzsche once said, "If you gaze long into the abyss gazes also into you." What if in childhood you don't just gaze, you speak? What if you welcome the abyss as a companion, and the abyss decides to answer? Here lies the hidden problem. Once invited, the friend may not leave. Childhood ends, toys are boxed away, but the shadow waits. The spirit lingers. The trauma speaks. And when you are grown, when you believe yourself rational, scientific, untouchable by such childish things, you may hear it again. In the whisper that slips into your thoughts. In the voice that answers when you ask yourself a question. The friend who wasn't human is not simply a game of make-believe. It is a riddle buried in the human condition. And like all riddles, it demands an answer. But the question is this: when your friend speaks again, will you recognize it as a part of yourself? Or will you realize too late that you were never alone at all?
You grow older. The dolls are gone, the drawings packed away, the bedroom walls painted over to look more mature. Childhood becomes a fading photograph, a blur you sometimes think of with nostalgia, sometimes with unease. You tell yourself the friend you once spoke to was nothing more than imagination, a childish trick of loneliness. But then, small things begin to happen. You think of someone you haven't seen in years, and within hours, they call you. You imagine the worst possible outcome to a situation, and it unfolds exactly as you feared. You wake from dreams that leave you shaken, only to watch their imagery bleed into waking life. At first, you call it coincidence. The brain is good at finding patterns, after all. You laugh it off, until the voice comes back. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It never did. Instead, it slips in quietly, like it always has. Just a whisper beneath your thoughts. Just a word at the edge of silence. A suggestion, a warning, a reminder. At first, you mistake it for your inner dialogue, the normal chatter of the mind. But then you notice something. It knows things you don't. It tells you not to take a certain street home one night, and later you hear there was an accident there. It urges you to call someone you've been avoiding, and you discover they were about to make a life-changing decision. Sometimes it speaks of memories you've long since buried, details you had no reason to recall. And every time, a cold recognition creeps in. This is not just you. The friend is back. But now they are no longer confined to the shadows of your bedroom. They move with you through the adult world. They step into your choices. They color your relationships. Sometimes they offer comfort, a strange kind of protection. Other times they lead you toward things you wish you had resisted. A partner once asked why you paused before answering certain questions, as though listening to someone else. A colleague remarked that you always seemed to know what was coming. You laugh it away, but inside, you feel the presence again. Stronger, closer. It slips into your dreams, too. Dreams so vivid they linger like fingerprints on your mind. In them, the friend walks beside you, not as a blur, but as a figure. Still faceless, still shifting, but undeniably there. They don't speak much in these dreams. They only look at you. And somehow that's worse. Is it madness? Psychologists would say so. Auditory hallucinations, a dissociative echo, a fragment of trauma replaying itself. Jung might argue that the shadow has taken form once more, demanding recognition. But there are nights when the explanation feels too small. Nights when the air grows heavy and you swear you hear footsteps in the room. Nights when the reflection in the glass lingers half a second too long after you move. And in those moments, you cannot shake the truth you learned as a child. The friend wasn't imaginary. But what are they? Are they protector or parasite? Angel or demon? Part of you or something entirely other? The not knowing gnaws at you. It burrows beneath your skin, because sometimes they are kind. They guide you away from pain. They comfort you when the world feels unbearable. And other times they are cruel, whispering doubts, magnifying your fears, planting seeds of despair you never meant to water. They are not always with you, but they are never far. A silence too thick, a shiver down your spine, the sense that you are never truly alone. And here lies the most haunting part. A tiny corner of you doesn't want them to leave. You've built a life, jobs, relationships, routines, but beneath it all there is a constant hum of loneliness, a loneliness no one else can ever quite touch, except them. They know you. They've always known you. deeper than any friend, deeper than any lover, deeper than any god. They've walked with you from childhood into adulthood, unbroken, unchanging. And though they may not be human, they are yours. Which raises the most unsettling question of all. If the friend isn't human, what does that make you for needing them so much?
There comes a moment when doubt is no longer enough. For years, you've tried to explain it away. Trauma, stress, imagination clinging like cobwebs from childhood. But now, the truth presses too close. The friend is no longer just a whisper in the margins. They've stepped into the center. They no longer hide in your dreams. They shape them. They no longer nudge your thoughts. They finish them. And one night, you stop pretending. You sit in the darkness, every light off, and you speak aloud. What are you? The silence waits. The air thickens. And then comes the reply, not booming, not ghostly, but quiet, intimate, closer than a heartbeat. I am what you've always known. The words crawl through you, not as sound, but as recognition, as though you aren't hearing something new, but remembering something forgotten. I've always been here, and you know it's true. But here's the unsettling part. They don't claim to be angel or demon, shadow or spirit. They never define themselves at all. They only echo the contours of your mind. They know your secrets, your regrets, your buried desires. They slip into them like water into cracks. I am not separate from you, they whisper, but I am not you either. That paradox gnaws at you. How can something be both self and not self? How can a voice inside your head not belong to you? Philosophers have wrestled with this question for centuries. Sartre spoke of the look, the terrifying moment when you realize you are being observed, even in solitude. Nietzsche warned that to conquer yourself, you must first confront the chaos within. And Jung wrote of autonomous fragments of the psyche, splintered yet alive, as though the human mind is not one entity, but a chorus. But in the moment, none of this comforts you, because the friend is not a theory. The friend is in the room. And when you close your eyes, you feel them watching you. They begin to speak more often now, not commands, but questions, not guidance, but riddles. They ask you why you lie to people you love, why you chase dreams that feel hollow, why you're so desperate to be seen, yet terrified to be known. Their questions cut deep, as if they are peeling away your mask piece by piece. You begin to realize they aren't interested in destroying you, they are interested in exposing you. But exposure can feel like ruin. One evening, after another of their interrogations, you finally shout back, "If you know me so well, then tell me, what are you?" This time, the answer chills you. I am what you needed me to be. And with that, the truth lands. They are not fixed. They are not one thing. They are a mirror shaped by your wounds, your fears, your longing. They took form in childhood because you needed them. They returned in adulthood because you still do. But does that make them part of you or something that feeds on you? The thought haunts you, because if they are only a reflection, then you have never truly been alone, but also never truly been whole. If they are something other, then you have lived your life side by side with a presence you invited without knowing the cost. And then comes the final twist of the knife. They whisper, "Do you really want me to leave?" You hesitate, not because you trust them, not because you believe them, but because the silence that would follow terrifies you more. It is in this hesitation that their power becomes clear. They do not need to be stronger than you, they only need to be necessary. And whether they are shadow, spirit, or something in between, they have become exactly that, necessary. And so, you find yourself living with a companion you can never name, A friend that wasn't human, yet more intimate than any human could ever be. A presence that both unsettles and sustains you. And late at night, when you wonder whether you are mad, whether this voice belongs to you or to something else entirely, the friend simply whispers, "Does it matter?" And the worst part is, you don't know how to answer.
The strangest thing about living with the friend is how ordinary it becomes. Days stretch into weeks, weeks into years. You rise, you work, you eat, you sleep. From the outside, nothing has changed. You laugh at the right times, you nod when people speak, you keep your life stitched together with the same small rituals as everyone else. But underneath, you know. There is a shadow beside you, an echo within you, a presence that watches, listens, remembers. It never demands to be worshipped. It never insists on being feared. It only exists, patient, silent, inevitable. At times you forget. You convince yourself it's gone. Weeks pass without a whisper, and you start to believe you've outgrown it, like a child leaving behind an imaginary friend. But just when the silence begins to feel safe, it returns. A voice, a question, a soft laugh inside your skull. You thought I'd left. It never leaves. The friend waits for moments of weakness, when exhaustion frays your nerves, when loneliness weighs heavy, when the world outside feels unbearably hollow. In those moments, its voice is clear again. It reminds you of your failures, yes, but also your strength. It points to your darkest fears, but also your deepest desires. It is both tormentor and teacher, shadow and guide. And you begin to realize it doesn't matter whether it's real or imagined, because either way, it has shaped you. Jung once said that what we call fate is often nothing more than the unconscious guiding us by unseen hands. Perhaps the friend is exactly that, your fate, clothed in mystery. Nietzsche might have called it the abyss gazing back, a reflection of your will to power and your fear of freedom. Dostoevsky might have said it is sin whispering in the human heart, or God himself speaking in riddles. But for you, labels have lost their meaning. It is not angel or demon, not delusion or truth. It is simply the friend. And here is the secret you've never told anyone. You don't really want it gone. The friend makes you feel less alone. Even in its cruelty, there is a strange comfort. Even in its riddles, there is a sense of intimacy. Because how many people in this world can see you completely, strip away every mask, and still stay? The friend has never left, and perhaps it never will. One night you ask it again, "What do you want from me?" The silence stretches long, so long you think maybe this time it won't answer. But then, soft as a breath, comes the reply. Only what you already give. A chill runs through you, not from terror, but from recognition, because deep down, you know you've been giving it something all along. Attention, energy, faith, fear. Whatever it is, you've fed it, and it has grown strong. And now you understand the final truth. The friend doesn't need to be believed in to exist. It exists because you cannot stop listening. So you stop asking what it is. You stop demanding a name. You stop trying to bury it or banish it. Instead, you accept the uneasy truth that there are voices we live with that never fade, shadows we carry that never leave. And maybe, just maybe, they are not meant to. Because sometimes the monster under the bed is really the mirror in the dark. And sometimes the friend who wasn't human is the truest companion you'll ever know. Even now, as you hear these words, maybe you feel something stir at the edges of your awareness. A memory, a presence, a voice you've long ignored. And if you do, don't be surprised when it whispers the same thing it has always has. I've always been here.